The monitors were screaming. 3 different alarms creating a symphony of death in operating room 4. I couldn't stop my hands from shaking as I watched the patient's blood pressure plummet, watched the crimson pool spreading beneath the surgical drapes, watched Dr. Stevens step back from the table with his hands raised like he'd just finished washing them, like he wasn't actively letting a man bleed out. Nurse Williams, step away from the table. Dr. Stevens's voice was ice, clinical, detached. I couldn't move. My eyes were locked on the monitor. BP 60 over 40, heart rate climbing into the danger zone. This man was dying, right here, right now, and everyone in this room was just watching. He has a DNR, Stevens said louder now. Do not resuscitate means we don't intervene aggressively. Hospital policy. But I'd seen the chart. DNR meant no CPR if the heart stopped. It didn't mean stand back and let him hemorrhage from a surgical complication you could fix in 30 seconds. The femoral artery was right there, spurting with each weakening heartbeat, and Stevens hadn't even tried to clamp it. This wasn't policy. This was murder. He's not in arrest. My voice came out steadier than I felt. DNR doesn't apply to active bleeding. You nicked the artery. You can clamp it. Stevens's eyes went flat. I gave you an order, Nurse Williams. The patient's ink-covered arm twitched. Dragons and symbols I didn't recognize snaking up from his wrist, disappearing under the hospital gown. He was young, maybe 30. His face was peaceful under the anesthesia, unaware that the surgeon standing over him had just signed his death warrant. I moved before I could think about it. Pushed past the scrub nurse, grabbed the vascular clamp from the tray, and stepped to the table. Stevens tried to block me, but I was faster. My hands stopped shaking the moment I touched the instruments. Muscle memory took over. Find the bleeder, isolate, clamp. The spurting stopped. The monitor's alarm. Pitch changed from critical to urgent. BP stabilizing, 70 over 45, 75 over 48. He was going to live. Security. Stevens' voice cracked across the OR. Remove this nurse from my operating room immediately. 2 security guards I'd never seen before were already at the door, like they'd been waiting. Strong hands grabbed my arms, pulling me backward. I stumbled, my scrubs now soaked with the patient's blood, as they dragged me toward the exit. He's stable, I shouted back at Stevens, at the other nurses who wouldn't meet my eyes, at the anesthesiologist who was suddenly very interested in his charts. He's going to live. Stevens didn't look at me. He was already on his phone, his back turned to the patient I just saved, his voice too low to hear. But I heard my name, Hannah Williams, and the word terminated. 20 minutes later, I was standing on the curb outside Metro General Hospital in the pouring rain. They'd moved fast. Security had walked me straight to the locker room, watched while I changed out of my bloody scrubs, handed me a cardboard box with my stethoscope and the photo of my mama I kept in my locker, and escorted me out the staff entrance like I was a criminal. Gross insubordination, the HR director had said, not even looking up from her paperwork. Violation of physician authority, disregard for hospital protocol. Your license to practice at this facility has been permanently revoked, and we'll be reporting this incident to the state nursing board. You're blacklisted, Miss Williams. No hospital in this city will touch you. I'd tried to explain, tried to tell them what I'd seen, what Stevens had done. But she'd just slid a non-disclosure agreement across the desk and told me to sign if I wanted any chance of keeping my nursing license at all. I signed. What choice did I have? Now I stood there, rain plastering my hair to my face, the thin cardboard box already disintegrating in my arms, watching the hospital windows glow warm and yellow against the dark sky. Somewhere in there, that patient was alive because of me, and I'd lost everything because of him. My phone was in my jacket pocket, rain-spotted but functional. My hands were shaking again, worse now than they'd been in the OR. I needed my mama, needed to hear her tell me I'd done the right thing, even if it cost me my career. Needed her to say it was going to be okay, even though we both knew it wasn't. I pulled up my contacts, vision blurring with tears and rain. Found Mama and started typing with numb fingers. Mama, I got fired for saving him. I think they wanted him dead. I'm scared. They're watching me. Metro General, staff entrance, please call me. I hit send and pressed my back against the wet brick wall, trying to make myself small. There was a black sedan parked across the street that hadn't been there when security walked me out. The windows were too dark to see inside, but I felt eyes on me. My phone buzzed. Who is this? My heart dropped into my stomach. No, 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 no. I looked at the message thread. The number at the top wasn't Mama's. I'd hit the wrong contact. A number I didn't even recognize, with no name attached. Wrong number. At the worst possible moment of my life. My fingers fumbled on the wet screen. Wrong number. I'm so sorry. I should have left it there. Should have called my Mama on her actual number and gotten out of the rain. But something made me keep typing. Desperation, fear, the bone-deep certainty that something was very, very wrong. But if you're reading this, a surgeon just tried to kill a patient at Metro General. I stopped him. Now I'm fired, and there are people watching me, and I don't know what to do. The typing indicator appeared immediately. 3 dots that made my breath catch. Then the response came. What did the patient look like? I blinked at the screen, rain dripping from my nose. What kind of question was that? But I answered anyway. Asian male, early 30s, heavily tattooed, dragons on his arms. They said his name was John Doe. The 3 dots appeared again, disappeared, appeared, like whoever was on the other end was choosing their words very carefully. Then, what is your exact location? Who is watching you? Is he alive? 3 messages in rapid succession. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. Metro General Hospital, staff entrance on Westfield, black sedan across the street. And yes, he's alive. I saved him. The response was instant. Stay exactly where you are. Do not move. Do not get in any vehicle. Do not go back inside. You just saved my brother's life, Hannah Williams, and you are in more danger than you understand. The blood drained from my face. I hadn't told this person my name. How do you... I started typing, but new headlights swept across the rain-soaked street. Not the sedan. Something bigger. 3 black SUVs moving in formation, smooth and fast, pulling up to the curb in front of me with military precision. The sedan across, the street suddenly roared to life and peeled away, tires screaming on wet pavement. The rear door of the center SUV opened. A man stepped out, and even through the rain, even in the dark, I could see he was different from anyone I'd ever encountered. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my student loans, immaculate despite the downpour. His face was all sharp angles and cold calculation, with dark eyes that swept over me once, taking in every detail, before settling on my face with an intensity that made me forget how to breathe. He moved toward me with predatory grace, silent despite the rain hammering the pavement. When he spoke, his voice carried a faint accent, each word precise and measured. Hannah Williams, nurse, 28 years old, graduated top of your class from state nursing school, no criminal record, no family except your mother in Atlanta. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could see the tattoo peeking out from his collar. A serpent, coiled and ready to strike. You have approximately 90 seconds before the people who wanted my brother dead realize you're still alive and unprotected. I suggest you get in the vehicle. I couldn't move, couldn't process. Who are you? My name is Jung Chul. The man you saved tonight was my younger brother, Minjun. The surgeon who tried to kill him was paid by people who want to destroy everything I've built. The hospital administrators who fired you are puppets. And the men in that sedan, he gestured to where the car had fled, were not hospital security. He pulled out his phone, showing me a text thread, my messages, the ones I'd just sent. You texted me by mistake, he said, but fate rarely makes mistakes. Now choose, come with me and live, or stay here and die. You have 60 seconds. I looked at the hospital doors, at the warm lights and the familiar hallways where I'd spent the last 4 years building a career that had just been ripped away from me in 20 minutes. Then I looked at Jung Chul, at the 3 SUVs idling with military precision, at the rain-soaked street where the sedan had been watching me. The cardboard box slipped from my numb fingers, its contents spilling across the wet pavement. My stethoscope, my mama's photo, the life I'd known, dissolving in the rain. I saved your brother because it was the right thing to do, I heard myself say. That doesn't mean I trust you. Something flickered in Jung Chul's cold eyes. Not quite a smile, not quite respect, but something. Trust is earned, he said, but survival is a gift. And right now, I'm offering you both. He extended his hand. I took it. The moment my fingers touched his, he moved, pulling me toward the SUV with the same efficient grace he'd used to approach. One of his men appeared at my side, umbrella already open, shielding me from the rain I'd stopped noticing. The door closed behind us with a heavy final sound. Inside, the SUV was warm and dark, leather seats that probably cost more than my car. Jung Chul sat across from me, already on his phone, speaking rapid Korean to someone on the other end. The vehicle started moving, smooth and fast. I watched through the tinted window as Metro General Hospital disappeared behind us, taking with it everything I'd worked for, everything I'd believed about the system I'd devoted my life to. My phone buzzed in my pocket, my real mama finally calling back. But when I looked at Jung Chul, at the way his eyes tracked every shadow, every vehicle, every potential threat as we moved through the city streets, I realized something terrifying. I'd saved a man's life tonight, and in doing so, I'd stepped into a world where saving lives and taking them were just 2 sides of the same coin. "Where are we going?" I whispered. Jung Chul's eyes met mine in the darkness, and for the first time, I saw something other than cold calculation. I saw the faintest shadow of relief. "Somewhere safe," he said. "Somewhere you can tell me exactly what happened in that operating room. Because if someone tried to kill my brother, they won't stop until they've erased every witness. And right now, Hannah Williams," his gaze intensified, "you're the only person who can help me find out who's trying to destroy my family." The SUV accelerated into the night, and I realized with crystal clarity that the text I'd sent to the wrong number hadn't been a mistake. It had been a lifeline, and I'd just grabbed hold of it with both hands. Subscribe to see how this unfolds and comment where you're watching from. I would love to say hello to you, just to know how far our story is going. The ride to wherever Jung Chul was taking me felt both endless and too short. My heart hammered against my ribs as the city lights blurred past the tinted windows. I kept my phone clutched in my hand, Mama's missed calls stacking up on the screen. 3, 4, 5. Each buzz made my chest tighter. "You should call her back," Jung Chul said without looking up from his own phone. His fingers moved across the screen with the precision of a surgeon. "Tell her you're safe. Tell her you're staying with a friend tonight. Tell her nothing else. And if she asks questions, then lie." His eyes flicked to mine, dark and unreadable. "Your mother is in Atlanta. That distance is the only thing keeping her safe right now. The less she knows, the better." I wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he couldn't just dictate how I talked to my own mother. But the memory of that sedan watching me, the speed with which his SUVs had appeared, the casual way he'd rattled off my entire life story, it all pointed to one terrible truth. He was right. I called Mama, listened to her frantic voice asking what happened, why Metro General's HR department had called her as my emergency contact, why I wasn't answering. I fed her the lies Jung Chul had prescribed, my voice steady even as my hands shook. Told her I was fine, told her I'd explain everything tomorrow, told her I loved her. The last part at least was true. When I hung up, Jung Chul was still watching me. "You're good at that." "At what?" "Lying. Your voice didn't waver once. He tilted his head slightly. Most people's voices go up in pitch when they lie. Yours stayed perfectly level. That's a useful skill. I'm not a liar, I said, defensive. No, he agreed. You're a survivor. There's a difference. The SUV turned into an underground parking garage, the kind with keycard access and security cameras every 10 feet. We descended 3 levels before pulling into a private section blocked by a steel gate that rolled up as we approached. The driver parked between 2 identical black vehicles, and Jung Chul's door was opened by a man in a dark suit before I could even unbuckle my seatbelt. This way, Jung Chul said, already moving toward an elevator. I followed because what else could I do? The elevator required a fingerprint scan and a 6-digit code. The interior was mirrored, and I caught sight of myself for the first time since leaving the hospital. My scrubs were gone, replaced by the jeans and Metro General hoodie I'd changed into. My hair was still damp from the rain, pulled back in a messy bun that was coming apart. My eyes looked too wide, too scared. I looked like exactly what I was, someone who'd just had their entire world turned upside down in the span of an hour. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse that made my breath catch. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the lights sprawling out like a galaxy made of gold and white. The space was modern and minimalist, all clean lines, dark wood, and expensive furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Abstract art hung on the walls, pieces I recognized from my one college art history class. Originals, probably worth more than I'd make in 10 lifetimes. Your room is down the hall, Jung Chul said, shrugging out of his wetsuit jacket and draping it over. A chair. Second door on the right. There are clothes in the closet that should fit. Everything you need is there. How long am I staying? As long as it takes. He moved to a bar cart near the windows and poured himself 2 fingers of something amber. He didn't offer me any. You're a loose end, Miss Williams. The people who wanted my brother dead now know you exist. They know you saw what happened in that operating room. They know you saved him despite their best efforts. That makes you a problem they'll want to eliminate. The words hit me like ice water. You mean they want to kill me? Yes. He took a slow sip of his drink, watching the city lights. They'll make it look like an accident, a mugging gone wrong, a car that runs a red light, something plausible enough that the investigation closes quickly and quietly. They're very good at making problems disappear. My legs felt weak. I sank onto the edge of a leather couch that probably cost more than my car. Why? Why would... They want him dead? Who is he? Who are you? Jung Chul turned to face me fully. In the low light of the penthouse, he looked less like a businessman and more like something predatory. Dangerous. The tattoo on his neck seemed to move in the shadows, a serpent coiled around a dagger. My brother's name is Minjun. He's my business partner and the only family I have left. 3 days ago, someone in my organization gave information to a rival syndicate about his location and schedule. They ambushed his car, shot him twice, and left him for dead. He survived long enough to be brought to Metro General, where, thanks to a generous donation we made to the hospital's new wing last year, we assumed he'd be safe. He finished his drink and set the glass down with a soft click. We were wrong. Someone paid your Dr. Stevens a significant amount of money to ensure my brother didn't leave that operating room alive. Stevens thought a DNR order would provide enough cover to let Minjun bleed out. What he didn't account for was you. I felt sick. So when I saved him, you exposed their plan. You proved there was a conspiracy. And now you're a witness who can testify that Stevens deliberately let a patient die. Jung Chul's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. That makes you valuable to me and extremely dangerous to them. I could go to the police, I said, even though I already knew how stupid that sounded. Jung Chul's laugh was short and humorless. The police? Miss Williams, the hospital's chief of security, is a retired police captain. The district attorney's office has 3 lawyers on my rival's payroll. The police chief plays golf with the hospital administrator every Sunday. You think they'll protect you? He shook his head. You'd be dead before you finish giving your statement. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the expensive heating system. So what am I supposed to do? Just hide here forever? No, you're going to help me find out who ordered the hit on my brother. You're going to identify everyone who was in that operating room. You're going to remember every detail, every conversation, every person who seemed nervous or out of place. And you're going to help me understand exactly how deep this conspiracy goes. And then what? Then I eliminate the problem. His voice was flat, final, permanently. I should have been terrified, should have been screaming, demanding he let me go, threatening to call the police despite everything he'd just said. But instead, I found myself thinking about that moment in the OR, the way Stevens had stepped back from the table, the way the scrub nurse had avoided my eyes, the way security had been waiting at the door like they'd known exactly when to come for me. They'd all been in on it, all of them. I want my nursing license back, I heard myself say. When this is over, whatever happens, I want my name cleared. I want to be able to work again, Jung Chul. Studied me for a long moment. Done. How? I have resources you can't imagine, Miss Williams. When I'm finished with the people who did this, they won't be in any position to threaten your career. The hospital will be very eager to rehire you with a glowing reference and a substantial settlement for wrongful termination. It should have sounded too good to be true. It probably was too good to be true. But I was so tired, so scared, so angry about everything that had been taken from me in one terrible hour that I just nodded. The room is down the hall, Jung Chul said again. Get some rest. We have a lot of work to do tomorrow. I stood on shaky legs and moved toward the hallway he'd indicated. At the doorway, I turned back. Your brother, is he okay? Did he make it through recovery? For the first time, Jung Chul's expression softened, just barely, just enough to show he was human under all that cold control. He's alive, thanks to you. The room he'd given me was larger than my entire apartment. King-size bed with white linens that looked like clouds, an ensuite bathroom with a shower that had more jets than I could count. The closet was indeed stocked with clothes, all in my size, which should have creeped me out, but mostly just made me too tired to care. I showered until the water ran cold, washing away the rain and the hospital smell and the feeling of Dr. Stevens's hands grabbing my arms. Then I fell into bed, wearing an expensive silk pajama set that felt like butter against my skin, and I didn't wake up until sunlight was streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. For a few blissful seconds, I forgot where I was, forgot what had happened, forgot that my entire life had been detonated like a bomb. Then I saw the clothes laid out on the chair, black jeans, a soft gray sweater, boots that were definitely designer, a note in sharp, angular handwriting. We have work to do. JC. I dressed quickly, my nurse's instincts making me check my reflection. With a critical eye, I looked better than I had last night, more put together, less like a victim. The clothes fit perfectly, which meant Jung Chul had somehow gotten my exact measurements. I decided not to think too hard about how. I found him in the kitchen, a massive space of marble and stainless steel, drinking coffee and reviewing documents spread across the island. He'd changed into fresh clothes, another immaculate suit, and he looked like he'd slept 8 hours and woken up in a spa. The man was infuriatingly composed. Coffee? He asked without looking up. Please. He gestured to a machine that looked more complicated than the equipment in the OR. I figured it out eventually, making myself a cup that tasted better than anything I'd ever gotten at the hospital cafeteria. When I turned around, Jung Chul was watching me with that same intense focus he'd used last night. I need you to look at these photos, he said, sliding a tablet across the counter. Tell me who you recognize. The screen showed a grid of faces. Some I knew from the hospital, administrators, surgeons, nurses. Others I didn't recognize at all. Hard-faced men and women who looked like they belonged in a different world entirely. "That's Dr. Stevens," I said, pointing to the surgeon who'd tried to kill Minjun. "And that's Deborah Chen, the head of surgical services. That's Marcus Rodriguez, chief of security." I scrolled through more images. "These people I don't know." "They're connected to the Kwan Syndicate," Jung Chul explained. "My rivals. They've been trying to move into my territory for the past 2 years. This hospital hit was their way of sending a message." I kept scrolling, kept seeing faces I recognized and faces I didn't. Then I stopped cold. Wait. My finger hovered over one photo. A woman with sharp features and calculating eyes. I know her. She was at the hospital yesterday morning. I saw her talking to Dr. Stevens in the hallway outside the OR. She wasn't in scrubs or a lab coat, just business clothes. I remember thinking it was odd because civilians aren't usually allowed in that wing. Jung Chul leaned forward, his full attention locked on me. "Are you certain?" "Positive. I noticed her because she had this incredibly expensive handbag. Hermes, I think. My mama loves fashion magazines, so I recognize designer stuff when I see it." I looked up at him. "Who is she?" "Her name is Sun-hee Park. She's the Kwan Syndicate's financial officer and one of their most ruthless operatives." Jung Chul's jaw tightened. If she was at the hospital meeting with Stevens, it confirms the payment came directly from them. It also means this wasn't just about killing Minjun. It was personal. Before I could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went carefully blank. "I need to leave for a few hours. Stay in the penthouse. Don't answer the door for anyone. Don't go near the windows. If anything happens, press this." Ing handed me a small black device that looked like a key fob. "Press it once for emergency, twice if you're in immediate danger. My men will be here in under 30 seconds. "Where are you going?" "To visit my brother, and to have a conversation with some people who owe me answers." He was already moving toward the elevator, his movements sharp and purposeful. "There's food in the refrigerator. The TV works. Make yourself comfortable. I'll be back before dinner." The elevator doors closed behind him, and I was alone in the penthouse. I spent the morning exploring my gilded cage. The penthouse had 3 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a study filled with books in both Korean and English, and a gym that would make my old YMCA membership look pathetic. Every surface was immaculate, every detail perfect. It felt less like a home and more like a showroom. I found myself in the study, looking at the books. Medical texts in Korean that I couldn't read, philosophy books in English that surprised me, Kant, Nietzsche, Marcus Aurelius, a well-worn copy of The Art of War with notes in the margins. Jung Chul read, studied, thought deeply about things. It didn't match the image I had of a crime boss. Then I found the photographs. They were in a drawer I probably shouldn't have opened, but I was a nurse, and nurses are naturally nosy about the people they care for. 3 photos, carefully preserved in a leather case. The first showed 2 boys, maybe 8 and 10 years old, standing in front of a modest house. The younger one was laughing, all gap-toothed joy. The older one, Jung Chul, though so much younger his face was almost unrecognizable, had his arm around his brother's shoulders with a smile that reached his eyes. They looked happy, normal. The second photo was of a woman who must have been their mother, beautiful and elegant, holding both boys close. The third photo made my chest ache. It was recent, taken maybe a year ago. Jung Chul and Minjun as adults, both in suits, standing in what looked like an upscale restaurant. Minjun was laughing at something off camera. Jung Chul was looking at his brother with an expression of such fierce protective love that it transformed his entire face. This was what he was protecting, not just his business or his reputation or his power, his family, the last person he had left in the world. I closed the drawer carefully and went to make myself lunch. I was halfway through a surprisingly good sandwich when I noticed something on one of the security monitors built into the wall near the kitchen. The screens showed various angles of the building, the parking garage, the lobby, the elevator. And one screen showed a familiar hallway. My hallway, my apartment building. I moved closer, my sandwich forgotten. The image was crystal clear, professional-grade surveillance. And standing outside my apartment door were two men in maintenance uniforms that didn't quite fit right. One was working on the lock, the other was watching the hallway, his hand resting inside his jacket in a way that suggested a weapon. My blood went cold. They weren't maintenance workers. They were exactly what Jung Chul had warned me about, the cleaners, the people sent to make problems disappear. If I'd gone home last night, if I'd ignored Jung Chul's warning, if I'd thought I could just slip back into my normal life and pretend none of this had happened, I'd be dead. The man at my door got the lock open. They both disappeared inside my apartment. I watched, helpless, as they searched my tiny studio, rifling through my belongings with efficient precision, looking for me, looking for any clue about where I might have gone. One of them found my laptop and tucked it under his arm. The other was taking photos of my personal documents, my mail, anything with information they could use to track me down. I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself, my heart racing. Jung Chul hadn't been exaggerating. This wasn't paranoia or manipulation. This was real. These people were really trying to kill me, and the only reason I was still alive was because I'd accidentally texted the one person in this city with the power to protect me. When Jung Chul returned that evening, I was sitting in the living room, waiting. I hadn't moved from the couch in hours, my eyes fixed on the security monitors. "You saw them," he said. "It wasn't a question. They broke into my apartment. They took my laptop and my documents and..." My voice cracked. "That was my home, my life. Everything I own is in that apartment, and they just walked in and..." "It's not your home anymore," Jung Chul said quietly. He sat down across from me, his expression serious. "That life is gone, Miss Williams. The question now is what kind of life you want to build to replace it." I looked at him, this dangerous man who'd saved me from one nightmare and trapped me in another. "I didn't ask for this." "No one ever does." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "But you made a choice in that operating room. You chose to save a life, even when it would cost you everything. That choice brought you here. The question is what you'll choose now." "I don't feel like I have much choice at all." "You're alive. That's a choice." His dark eyes held mine. "Everything that comes after is just details." We sat in silence for a long moment, the city lights glittering beyond the windows. Finally, I nodded. What else could I do? "There's something you should know," Jung Chul said. "I visited Minjun today. He's awake. He wants to meet you, to thank the woman who saved his life." "Is he okay? Did the surgery hold?" "Better than expected. He'll need physical therapy, but he'll recover fully." A ghost of a smile crossed Jung Chul's face. "He says you have a gentle touch. Even while sedated, he knew someone was fighting to keep him alive." Something warm spread through my chest. This was why I'd become a nurse. Not for the paycheck or the status, or even the career. For moments like this when someone lived because I'd refused to give up on them. "I'd like to meet him," I said, "when he's strong enough." "Tomorrow, perhaps." Jung Chul stood, rolling his shoulders like they ached. For the first time, I noticed he was moving carefully, stiffly. "Are you hurt?" The nurse in me came alive, the assessment automatic. "It's nothing." "Let me be the judge of that." I stood, already moving toward him. "You're favoring your left side. Gunshot? Knife wound? Blunt trauma?" "Miss Williams." "It's Hannah, and I'm a nurse, remember. Sit down and show me." For a moment, I thought he'd refuse. This man who commanded armies of criminals and made people disappear with a phone call looked genuinely uncertain about letting me examine him. Then something shifted in his expression, a kind of resignation, and he sat back down. He unbuttoned his shirt with methodical precision, revealing a torso that was all lean muscle and pale skin marred by scars. So many scars. Some old and faded, others relatively fresh. A road map of violence written across his body. But the injury I was looking for was on his left side, just above his hip. A deep gash, partially wrapped in gauze that was starting to seep blood. The makeshift bandage was already dirty, applied by someone who knew enough to stop the bleeding, but not enough to do it properly. "This needs stitches," I said, my professional calm taking over. "And it needs to be cleaned properly or you'll get an infection. Where's your first aid kit?" "Bathroom cabinet in the master suite." I fetched it, returning with supplies that were surprisingly comprehensive. Someone in Jung Chul's organization knew what they were doing when it came to stocking medical supplies. I set everything out on the coffee table with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this thousands of times. "This is going to hurt," I warned, pulling on gloves. "It already hurts." "Then this will hurt more." I cleaned the wound with betadine, watching his jaw tighten but hearing no sound of pain. His control was absolute, even when I pressed gauze into the injury to check for debris. "You're lucky. It's clean, just deep. About 3 inches long, half an inch deep." "Knife?" "Broken bottle." "Bar fight?" "Business meeting that got heated." He was watching my hands work, his gaze intense. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do. It's what I'm trained for." I threaded the suture needle, my hands steady. "And if you die of sepsis, I'm stuck in this penthouse with no way to clear my name or go back to my life. So really, I'm being selfish." His lips quirked, almost a smile. "Selfish. That's one word for it." I made the first stitch, pulling the edges of the wound together with practiced precision. His breath hitched slightly, but he didn't flinch. Most people flinched. Most people moved or jerked or tensed in ways that made suturing difficult. But Jung Chul sat perfectly still like he'd trained himself to override every natural response to pain. "Who taught you to do that?" I asked quietly, making another stitch. "To not react." "Life." His voice was distant. "When showing pain means showing weakness, you learn quickly." "That's a terrible way to live." "It's the only way I know." I finished the last stitch and covered the wound with a proper bandage, taping it securely. "Change this twice a day. Keep it dry. If you see any redness, swelling, or discharge, it's infected and you'll need antibiotics. Come find me and I'll check it." "You're good at this." "I'm good at my job, when people let me do it." I started packing up the supplies, avoiding his eyes. That's all I've ever wanted, to help people, to heal them. Now I'm stuck here because I did exactly that. "You saved my brother's life. That's not stuck. That's karma." "Karma," I repeated, finally meeting his gaze. "Is that what you call this? Because it feels more like a cage." Jung Chul was quiet for a moment, his dark eyes searching mine. Then he buttoned his shirt back up, hiding the evidence of violence beneath expensive fabric. "A cage is only a cage if you want to leave. Some prisons we build ourselves. Others are built for us. The trick is figuring out which one you're in." I didn't have an answer to that. Wasn't sure I wanted one. "Get some rest," he said, standing carefully. "Tomorrow will be a long day." I watched him walk down the hallway toward the master suite, moving with that predatory grace despite the fresh stitches in his side. When his door closed, I was alone again in the penthouse that wasn't quite a home and wasn't quite a prison. I touched my phone in my pocket, feeling the weight of Mama's unanswered texts, the weight of the life I'd left behind, the weight of whatever this new life was becoming. Outside the windows, the city glittered like broken glass, beautiful and dangerous in equal measure. Somewhere out there, people wanted me dead. Somewhere out there, Minjun was recovering because I'd refused to let him die. Somewhere out there, the truth about what happened in that operating room was waiting to be uncovered. And here, in this golden cage, I'd just stitched up a crime lord with hands that were trained to heal. I wasn't sure what that made me anymore. Nurse or accomplice, victim or survivor, prisoner or partner. Maybe I was all of them. Maybe that was the only truth that mattered. I turned off the lights and went to my room, falling asleep to the sound of the city below and the memory of Jung Chul's voice. The trick is figuring out which one you're in. Tomorrow I'd start figuring it out. Tonight, I just needed to survive. The next morning brought answers I wasn't prepared for. Jung Chul had me look through more photos over breakfast, faces connected to the hospital, to his organization, to the Kwan Syndicate. My coffee went cold as I scrolled through image after image, trying to place people I'd seen in hallways, outside operating rooms, in the cafeteria. Then I stopped. Him. My finger hovered over a man's face. Dark hair, sharp suit, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He was in the hallway outside the OR right before they brought your brother in. I remember because he was watching everything. Not like a visitor or a doctor, like he was waiting for something. Jung Chul went very still. Are you certain? Positive. He had this look. Predatory. I almost reported him to security, but I got pulled into the emergency with your brother and forgot. I looked up, saw Jung Chul's expression had turned to stone. Who is he? His name is Daejung. Jung Chul's voice was ice. He's my second in command, my most trusted lieutenant, the man I've known for 15 years. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the marble floor. The man who has access to every aspect of my operation, including my brother's schedule. The implications hit me like a physical blow. You mean, the traitor isn't in the Kwan. Syndicate. He's in my own house. Jung Chul's hands clenched into fists. Daejung sold us out. He gave them Minjun's location. He arranged the hospital hit. He's been working against me from the inside. He made 3 phone calls in rapid Korean, his voice sharp and commanding. When he hung up, his expression was murderous. We're going out tonight. There's a hospital fundraising gala. The administrator will be there. The board members. Everyone involved in this conspiracy, celebrating in their evening wear while thinking they got away with murder. What are we going to do? You're going to identify everyone who was involved. Every doctor, every administrator, every person who knew about the DNR order and said nothing. He looked at me with those dark, calculating eyes. And I'm going to get proof, evidence that even their expensive lawyers can't explain away. How? You'll wear a wire. I'll introduce you as my date. You'll get them talking, get them comfortable, get them to slip up. They'll think you're just arm candy for a wealthy donor. His lips curved into something cold and predatory. They have no idea who you are or what you witnessed. By the time they realize, it'll be too late. That evening, I stood in front of the mirror in my room, barely recognizing myself. The dress Jung Chul had provided was stunning, midnight blue silk that hugged my curves and fell to the floor in elegant waves. My hair was styled by someone who'd appeared at the penthouse that afternoon, professional and silent. My makeup was flawless. I looked like I belonged in Jung Chul's world, like I was someone who attended galas and wore diamonds and smiled at corrupt administrators who tried to commit murder. The wire was hidden beneath the dress, a tiny microphone pressed against my skin, transmitting everything to the security team waiting outside. Jung Chul appeared in the doorway, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. He wore a tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped out of a fashion magazine, all sharp lines and dangerous elegance. His eyes traveled over me with an intensity that made my breath catch. You look, he paused, searching for words. Perfect. I look like someone I'm not. No. He stepped closer, adjusting the diamond necklace at my throat with gentle fingers. You look exactly like who you are, strong, beautiful, dangerous in ways they'll never see coming. The gala was held at the Grand Riverside Hotel, all crystal chandeliers and marble floors and people in clothes that cost more than my student loans. Jung Chul kept his hand on the small of my back as we entered, a gesture that looked possessive but felt protective. I spotted Dr. Stevens within 5 minutes. He was laughing with Deborah Chen and a man I recognized as the hospital administrator, Marcus Whitfield. They looked relaxed, happy, like they'd won. "That's them," I whispered to Jung Chul. "Stevens, Chen, and Whitfield. They're all here." "Good." His hand tightened, slightly on my back. "Stay close. Let me handle the introductions." We approached the group with the confidence of predators. Stevens saw me first, his face going pale, his glass of champagne trembling in his hand. "Miss Williams, I didn't expect to see you here." "Dr. Stevens." Jung Chul's voice was smooth silk. "You know my date? How wonderful. Hannah has told me so much about her time at Metro General." Stevens's eyes darted between us, calculating, panicking. "Your date?" "Yes, we met under rather interesting circumstances." Jung Chul smiled, all charm and menace. "She's quite remarkable. Saved a man's life despite enormous pressure to let him die. I find that kind of integrity attractive." Whitfield stepped forward, his politician's smile firmly in place. "Mr. Kim, we didn't realize you'd be attending tonight." "I'm a generous donor. It seemed appropriate." Jung Chul's gaze was cold. "Though I must say, I'm concerned about the quality of care at your hospital. I've heard troubling stories about doctors who prioritize external interests over patient welfare." The words landed like bombs. I watched Stephen's face go from pale to gray, watched Chen's forced smile falter, watched Whitfield's mask slip just enough to show the fear underneath. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean," Whitfield said, but his voice wavered. "Don't you?" Jung Chul leaned in slightly, his voice dropping. "Perhaps we should discuss it. In private. I'd hate for my foundation to continue supporting an institution with such questionable ethics." I wandered closer to Stevens while Jung Chul talked to Whitfield, pretending to admire the art on the walls. The wire picked up everything. "She knows," Stevens hissed to Chen. "That nurse, she saw everything. If she talks, she won't." Chen's voice was sharp. "She signed the NDA. She's been blacklisted. She has no proof, no credibility. It's over." "Then why is she here with Kim? Why is she—" "Shut up." Chen grabbed his arm. "Not here. Not now." But it was enough. The wire had recorded everything. The admission, the conspiracy, the proof we needed. Jung Chul appeared at my side, his hand finding mine. "Time to go." We left quickly, moving through the crowded ballroom toward the exit. My heart was racing, adrenaline pumping through my veins. We'd done it. We had the evidence. We were halfway to the parking garage when I saw the man in the maintenance uniform. Then another. 3 more by the elevator. "Jung Chul," I whispered. "Something's wrong." He saw them too. His body went tense, predatory. "Stay behind me." His driver brought the car around, a black sedan with bulletproof windows. Jung Chul pushed me inside first, sliding in beside me. The driver pulled away from the curb smoothly, heading for the exit. That's when the first shots rang out. The rear window shattered despite being bulletproof. The driver's window exploded in a spray of glass. Our driver, a young man whose name I'd never learned, slumped forward, blood spreading across his crisp white shirt. "Down!" Jung Chul shoved me to the floor, his body covering mine. More gunshots. The car swerved wildly, the dead driver's foot still on the gas. Jung Chul reached forward, grabbed the wheel, tried to steer from the back seat. But we were going too fast, the car out of control. We hit the parking garage wall with a sickening crunch of metal. My ears were ringing. My head ached from where it had hit the door. But I was alive. I crawled forward, pushed the dead driver aside with shaking hands, and slid into the front seat. "What are you doing?" Jung Chul demanded. "Saving us." I turned the key, threw the car in reverse. The engine screamed in protest, but caught. I'd never been a great driver, but desperation made me focused. I floored it, backing away from the wall as more gunshots peppered the car. Exit, north side. Jung Chul was on his phone, barking orders in Korean. Blood was spreading across his white shirt. He'd been hit. I drove like my life depended on it, because it did. Squealing through turns, running red lights, taking side streets I'd never used before. Behind us, 2 black SUVs gave chase. Safe house, Jung Chul gasped. 47th and Madison, gray building. I got us there, my hands white-knuckled on the wheel. His men were already waiting, laying down covering fire as we abandoned the destroyed sedan. They carried Jung Chul inside while I ran behind them, my ridiculous heels clicking on concrete. The safe house was sparse. Concrete walls, minimal furniture, weapons everywhere. They laid Jung Chul on a table in what looked like a kitchen. Blood was everywhere. "We need a hospital," one of his men said in accented English. "No hospitals." Jung Chul's voice was weak but firm. "They'll be watching. They'll finish the job." All eyes turned to me. "I'm a nurse," I said, my training kicking in despite the terror. "Not a surgeon. I can stabilize him, but..." "Then stabilize him." Jung Chul's hand found mine, his grip surprisingly strong. "I trust you." They brought me supplies, a first aid kit that was more comprehensive than most ERs. I cut away his shirt, my hands steady despite everything. 2 gunshot wounds, one through his shoulder, clean through, one in his abdomen, the bullet still inside. I could hear gunfire outside. Daijung had found us. His men were storming the safe house. "Hold him down," I ordered Jung Chul's guards. "This is going to hurt." I worked faster than I'd ever worked in my life, cleaned the wounds, extracted the bullet from his abdomen with forceps that weren't quite right for the job, packed the wounds to stop the bleeding, sutured what I could with hands that shook from adrenaline but never wavered from their purpose. The door to the room burst open. A man in black tactical gear, his gun raised. One of Jung Chul's guards shot him, but another was right behind him. I grabbed a syringe of sedative from the medical supplies and plunged it into the attacker's neck as he lunged toward the table. He dropped like a stone. "Hannah," Jung Chul's voice was weak. "Hannah, you need to run." "I'm not leaving you." I tied off the last suture. "I didn't save you twice just to let you die now." More gunfire, shouting. Then silence. Jung Chul's reinforcements had arrived. The safe house was secure. Daijung and his men were either dead or fled. It was over. Jung Chul survived. Of course he did. Men like him were too stubborn to die. I spent 3 days at his side while he recovered, changing bandages, monitoring for infection, forcing him to rest despite his protests. Minjun visited, still weak from his own injuries, but healing. He thanked me with tears in his eyes, called me his brother's savior in more ways than one. Jung Chul kept his promise. The evidence from the wire, combined with testimony from terrified hospital staff who'd been blackmailed into silence, brought down the entire conspiracy. Dr. Stevens lost his license. Deborah Chen and Marcus Whitfield faced criminal charges. The hospital board was dissolved and rebuilt from scratch. My nursing license was restored with a formal apology. Metro General offered me my job back with a promotion and a raise that would have been tempting 6 months ago. I turned them down. "You could have your old life back," Jung Chul said, sitting beside me in the penthouse that had become more home than cage. His arm was in a sling, his movements still careful, but his eyes were clear. "Everything you worked for, everything you lost, it's yours again." "Is it?" I looked at the city lights, thinking about the person I'd been before that night in the OR. "I don't think I'm that person anymore." "What person are you?" "Someone who knows the system is broken. Someone who knows that the people who need help most are the ones the system fails." I turned to face him. "You mentioned a clinic, a place for people who can't get care anywhere else. I want to run it." Jung Chul studied me for a long moment. "It won't be legal. Most of my people can't risk going to hospitals. can't use insurance, can't leave paper trails. I know. You'll be treating criminals, people who've done terrible things. I'll be treating people, I corrected. That's all I've ever wanted to do. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or understanding. Then it's yours. I'll fund it, staff it, give you everything you need. He reached for my hand. On one condition. What? You stay here, with me, where I can protect you, where I can... He paused, searching for words. Where I can see you every day and remember that there's still good in this world worth protecting. I should have said no, should have maintained professional boundaries, should have remembered that he was a criminal and I was a healer, and we existed in different worlds. But I'd stitched his wounds and he'd saved my life, and somewhere in the chaos we'd become something neither of us expected. Okay, I said simply. His smile was rare and beautiful. Okay. 6 months later, I ran the shadow clinic from a nondescript building in a neighborhood where people knew not to ask questions. I treated knife wounds and gunshot wounds and infections and overdoses. I saved lives without judgment, without prejudice, without the bureaucracy that had made me choose between my conscience and my career. Jung Chul visited every evening, checking on my safety, bringing supplies, staying for dinner that we'd cook together in companionable silence. His brother recovered fully and treated me like family. The organization accepted me as Jung Chul's partner in more ways than one. I never went back to Metro General. Never wanted to. I'd learned that healing sometimes required breaking the rules, that justice sometimes existed outside the law, that the wrong number had been exactly the right number all along. And every night, when Jung Chul kissed me goodnight and I fell asleep in the penthouse that had become our home, I thought about that moment in the OR, the choice to save a life, the choice that changed everything. I'd make the same choice again, every single time.